Hey, welcome everyone to the 90-day run. My goodness, we're on the backside of this 90-day run for everything Neumi. If this is your first time here, fantastic. You're going to hear some great information. You're going to be amazed by what you hear. If this is your third, fourth, fifth, or 60th time you've been here and a repeat listener, guess what? You're going to hear some fabulous information. My name is Sherry Warner. I'm a diamond leader in Neumi. And why am I here? I met a guy by the name of Stephen Scott 14 years ago, and we have been friends for this whole time. And he is a guy that you're going to get to meet on this call today. And he is the founder of Neumi. And you're going to be amazed by the words that come out of his mouth. Steve is also a New York Times best-selling author, and he developed a program called Master Strategies for Super Achievers. And it is a book that he wrote, and it's in the Millionaire's Notebook. It's a great read. If you've never read it, I encourage you to look up that book. But he talked about effective partnering. And that's what we feel like we have done at Neumi. We have effectively partnered with a gentleman and a company who can elevate the level of success that we're having in Neumi around the globe. So without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to introduce you today to the founder of Neumi and my dear friend, Steve Scott. Steve? Unmute, Steve. There you go.
We're on.
There you go.
All of a sudden, Siri started talking to me out of nowhere. So it's I'm hearing voices. Anyway, welcome everybody to this call. Of course, we have a lot of Neumi family members here, and hopefully we're getting visitors here. My name is Steve Scott, and my background was television marketing. I started a company in 1976, before some of you were born, and we found a product that was a breakthrough. It could do something that no other product could do in the world, could do as effectively or efficiently. And even though it was more expensive, 4 times as expensive as the brands that were the top 2 brands in the category, from our first week on the air, we were outselling them, not just in dollar volume, but in units. People couldn't believe, and they were in tens of thousands of stores, and we weren't in a single store. We were just on your local TV stations. And nobody could believe we were seeing the kinds of results, the kind of response that we were seeing, especially at our price point. The top 2 brands were under $1.50 a unit. Ours was at $9.50 in 1976. That was a lot of money because a gallon of gas was only 38 cents. And so it was, that's basically almost a tank of gas. And yet people were excited about spending it. They not only bought the original product, they kept getting it every month. The renewal on it was unbelievable. So that was the value of a breakthrough product. My partner and I invested $5,000. It was all his money because I was broke. And 5 months later, our sales hit $1 million per week. And we never looked back. On that particular product, we had it on the air for a little over 2 years, did over 100 million in sales. But we started finding other breakthrough products. And the result was, by the time I retired after 35 years, we had done many billions of dollars in sales. We had generated over 40 million phone calls, millions and millions of customers, to everything from life insurance and health insurance, to books, to medications, to weight loss and fitness. The one we're best known for, of course, is the Total Gym with Chuck Norris and Christy Brinkley. That's been on the air now for 28 years, every week in every market in the United States. Sometimes you may not see it because you may not stay up late enough to see it. And I know Sherry's Sherry lives on a farm in Indiana, and she may be early to bed, early to rise every day. But in 2006, a doctor from the Mayo Clinic brought me a breakthrough that when I saw it and I saw some of his clinical studies, I realized this could be really amazing. And he said it would change my life. Well, it changed the whole direction of my life. That's how amazing it was. And what it was he had a patented formula for helping the body to increase at a cellular level its glutathione production. And I spent a few $1,000s to see if it was as effective as he said. We made up, I think I spent $50,000 to create some units of product that we could test with people that he had no control over, because you never know, it could just be a gimmick. Well, we gave it to people and people saw amazing results. And so I invested over $1 million at that time, started a new company in 2007 to market what seemed to be an incredible breakthrough in glutathione enhancement. Now, I had never heard of glutathione. In fact, I didn't even believe in any supplements because they had never been done anything for me. And so I didn't believe in them. And yet he showed me enough. And then I saw in my own market test that people really needed to find ways to raise their glutathione levels. Well, a couple of years later, we bought patents from the University of Minnesota that were even greater advancements in this field. And by the time it was all said and done, I was there from 2006 is when we started looking at it, and I left that company in 2017. And what they had were some good products for increasing the cellular upregulation of one of the precursing amino acids to the cellular manufacture of glutathione, that amino acid being L-cysteine. In 2017, actually in 2016, I personally started working with some nanoscientists to see if we could find an even better way to increase cellular utilization. And that's an important word. People use the word bioavailability. They use things like increases in the blood levels in glutathione. Let me tell you, increases in blood levels of glutathione are totally meaningless. Now, I thought that they were meaningful, and I even had them on my label of my first product because tests shown that we had increased levels in the lymphocytes, glutathione levels, by as much as 300%. Well, then this scientist we started working with, who is one of the world's renowned scientists, medicinal scientists, literally one of the top, I'd say one of the top 10 in the world. He said, could you please take that out of your advertising? I said, why? It's true. Well, it may be true, but it's meaningless. What do you mean? He says, it doesn't matter what's in the blood. What matters is what gets in the cell and then what the cell does with it. Can it be effectively utilized once it's in the cell? He said, that's all that matters. And there's no way to tell that from blood tests. The way you tell that is you ask an animal to voluntarily give you his heart, liver, kidneys, lungs, and so on. And then you make measurements there where it really counts, which is in the cellular tissues. So we took that out of our advertising. Well, now everybody else is advertising. We raise glutathione levels by 300% in the blood and this and that. Meaningless, meaningless. Once again, what's important is what gets into the cell and what the cell does with it. We call that cellular utilization. So it's upregulation of the cell and then cellular utilization. That's what counts. Well, I started working with these nanoscientists in 2016 and developed some glutathione products that seemed to make a huge difference at a clinical level. I got them to a friend of mine who had a medical clinic in Florida, and he was seeing things that he had never seen in his lifetime. So got pretty excited, started putting more and more effort into it, more and more money into it. And the big break came in 2018 when in a lab, we were able to get our glutathione levels so our particle size so small that it didn't have to go through the stomach. Why? Why is that important? Because glutathione is destroyed when it hits the stomach. You can look that up. I'm doing a lot of research these days. I'm reading a lot of articles, and it is so commonplace. In fact, the reason most doctors don't believe in our product, they think like anything else, we rely on getting glutathione or its precursing amino acid, rate limiting amino acid, L-cysteine, through the stomach. And we don't. If we did, they'd be right. Our product would be worthless. But we found a way to get the particle size so tiny and deliver it not in a liposome, which is a coating of fat, but rather in a highly charged water molecule matrix that allows us to get this incredibly small size. So it goes right into the bloodstream through your mucous membranes inside your cheeks and sublingually under your tongue in the venous cavity. And you simply swish it like a mouthwash. And people do it for different amounts. You should do it for at least 30 seconds. I do it probably for 2 or 3 minutes as I'm getting ready for, well, right when I get out of bed. I'm just doing it. I do it. I hold it under my tongue while I put my contact lenses in. I'm swishing while I'm in the shower. I hold it under my tongue while I'm shaving, put it all together, and it's probably there for at least 3 to 4 minutes. We've got world-class athletes that'll do it for 3 to 4 minutes right before an event or right before a workout. And some of these guys have broken world records. So who am I to tell them that it's overkill? You don't need it to do it for 7 or 8 minutes. And that's what some of them do. So anyway, we developed this. We started giving some out to people. I knew if we really had a home run, it would make a radical difference in athletic performance. And boy, does it. In fact, I just finished writing a document. This is not for the field right now. I've got to have it all scrutinized. But I'll read you. Let's see if I can find it. Here's what we have actually measured. Okay, that's not the document. Maybe I won't be sharing this. Is that it? No. Let's see. Is that it? No. Isn't this fun waiting on me to do what most people could do in seconds? No. And I can take longer to do it. Okay, that's not it. No. Am I still on camera? I hope. Oh my God. Oh, good, good. All of a sudden I thought I was lost. Basically, I can remember some of the, you want to see the tabulation so you can see how scientific this is. Oops, got my blur on. Here we go. Blur. Look at, now what are those? Those are tabulations of very, very fit people doing push-ups. We did a push-up challenge at a fitness convention, and these people had to prove their fitness in that they were able to, in their first set, do 50 crisp push-ups before they would fail. And we would have them do a set of push-ups to failure. And the reason you want fit people is because their baselines don't change. You know, on one day, I'm not that fit. So on one day, I could maybe do 5 push-ups, another day, 7 or 8, another day, 2 or 3, another day, maybe 10. And it's all over the board. So any testing of me would be meaningless. But when you have someone who's fit, they will be very consistent in their baseline of performance. And so all these athletes on a good day would they had to be able to do 50 push-ups without failure. Now, some of them were right at 50. 51, they couldn't get off the ground. We had one do 100 push-ups. Actually, we had a couple do 100 push-ups, and they were nice and crisp. And then it would fail. When it failed, you can't get a half an inch off the ground. I mean, it's really, you're done. Well, an NFL trainer and somebody else, and I even checked it out on ChatGPT, said that if a very fit person does a set of push-ups to failure, their second set will be 10 to 30% less than their first set. Now, if they're not in good condition, their second set will be half or 25% or even 10% of their first. But for a very fit athlete or individual, their second set should be 10 to 30% less than their first set. So we did this test, and we did it with, I wish I had the number right in front of me. I do. It's on a document. I just got to see what I did with that document. Not that one. Okay, it's going to be in here. I'll look real quick because I like to be accurate. Documents. Okay, you're going to like, okay, here we go. Here we go. Woohoo. Okay, so what happens is they would perform their first set to failure, and then they would have a 20-minute rest period, and then they would do a second set. Now, rest for them was walking around the rest of the convention, and they would come back 20 minutes later, and we'd give them a 5-minute grace period, so 20 to 25 minutes, and they would perform a second set. Well, the result was, instead of a decrease of 10 to 30%, all of them together averaged an increase of 20% more push-ups in the second set than in the first set. Now, any trainer will tell you that's impossible if you really went to failure, but that's what they did. And it was amazing. And it was so funny to watch them because the way it goes, if you can see me, it's like, okay, so let's say they could do 60 push-ups. So here's how it is: 51, 52, 53, 54. And they're done, right? That's failure. Well, you give them that swish. We gave them the swish right before they left the booth, and they came back 20 minutes later. And if they had done 60 push-ups, here's how they were doing as they went through it: 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. And then they get this surprised look on their face: 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68. And they're done. They never got into these shaking, unstable push-ups. They were all crisp, right to failure. It was amazing. They literally every single person that did participated, and 43 is a statistically accurate statistic that you can use to project what you would see with results. And so they were blown away by that test. And that shows an increase in two things: an increase in muscle output, which people don't get. Okay, that means their strength went up. But it also meant an accelerated recovery time. So that 20-minute period, their recovery was accelerated and their raw muscle strength went up. Well, the NFL also gave us a test for just measuring raw increase in muscle strength. And what that is, on day one, they do push-ups to failure, wait 2 minutes, and do a second set. Day two, same thing, but in the rest period, in the 2-minute interval before the second set, they swish. And we have them swish 2 servings for 1 minute each and then swallow. And there we saw a 26 to 52% increase over the second set. Now the second set in that case there's no time recovery, so it's just sheer muscle output. And to determine the increase in muscle output, you look at the difference in the second set on day one and the second set on day two. So if your product makes a difference in sheer muscle output, your day where you've got the swish and the 2-minute interval between the two sets, is that set of push-ups more than the other set? Well, the answer was yes, 26 to 52% increase in the second set when they used our product. Now, I was talking to an NFL trainer on the phone yesterday. He is the trainer for the Detroit Lions, which almost made it to the Super Bowl, barely lost out. And he and his coach are both on our product and have Brett, the trainer, has been on it since I created it way back in 2007 or 2000. He tested it in 2018 and he's never been off it since. He was on lab batches for 2 years before we started branded product. And in fact, he said something yesterday. And so this is an undocumented statement. Remember, we are a supplement. We are not a medicine. We don't treat, cure, prevent, or diagnose any disease state. We're a supplement. But yesterday he called me and he said, Steve, you saved my life. I said, what are you talking about, Brett? He said, I just had very extensive blood tests. He said they took 15 vials of blood to do these real extensive testing, got the results. And when I came in, the doctor says, I can't even believe what I'm looking at. And Brett said, what's going on? Brett's 60, he's just turning 60 years old. He said, your mercury level is so high, you should be dead. You should be dead. But your glutathione level is so high, it has chelated the mercury, and that's why you're alive. I don't know how you're doing it. And Brett said, well, I have a product that increases glutathione. He said, don't go off the product. The doctor said, don't go off the product. It's kept you alive. Well, we had heard of one other gentleman, the guy who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, Mark Victor Hansen. Years ago, Harvard said, you're going to die in the next 6 months from mercury poisoning. There's nothing we can do. They tried chelating over a few month period, all with no success. I met this guy's fiance. She was at a writers conference. I gave her product for herself. My first glutathione enhancing product, which was a good product. Well, she gets home, she gives it to Mark, and 3 or 4 months later, he goes back to Harvard because he's feeling so good. He thought maybe something's changed. His mercury level had gone to 0. So that's when I did my homework on chelation. Yes, glutathione is not only the detoxifier of the cell, it's the chelator of the cell. So glutathione has this real sticky sulfhydryl molecule, and it sticks to the chemicals in your cell. Everybody on this call has at least 200 industrial chemicals in your body that don't belong there. And they will break down the mitochondrial DNA. They have the potential to, and when they do, it allows the cell to mutate and multiply. And we know that's terrible when that happens. Well, glutathione protects the mitochondrial DNA by lowering the chemical load in the cell with this sticky sulfhydryl molecule that sticks to the chemical and gets it out. Well, it also, I found out clear back in, I don't know, it's been 2000 and let's see, 7, 2008, 2009, probably 2010 with Mark Victor Hansen. So that, my first book came out in 96, 98. This was probably in like 2002, 2001, could have been as early as 19 something. But anyway, when that happened, I started doing some research, and sure enough, glutathione does chelate most heavy metals, not all, but most of them, and nothing else does. So it is a chelator of heavy metals. But what does it mean to you and me? We're going to do this real quick. What we do, we have found what I believe and what our doctors on our medical board believe is the most effective and efficient way to increase the cellular upregulation and utilization of glutathione. Light years ahead of everybody else, at least in the opinion of our doctors. One, of our doctors, who is also a scientist, said everybody else is selling a skateboard. You're selling an F-35 supersonic jet fighter. And he said, the funny thing is you're selling the jet fighter for less money than everybody else is selling skateboards. And he said, that's how advanced you are. Now, this guy's no slouch. He was on the Stanford heart transplant team. He has brought over 200 cardiovascular therapies and cancer therapies to the world that the world currently uses. He's brilliant, but he's been using our product with his client base for a long, long time. And it's just seen such amazing results. By the way, if you don't know about our medical board, go to Neumi.com, find about us, find medical advisory board, and look, you'll see doctors from Harvard, from Stanford, from Mayo Clinic, from Houston Heart, from Texas Heart Institute, #1 heart surgeon, our #1 heart surgery program in the United States, Texas Heart Institute. I know because my son's at the University of Minnesota finishing up his work on cardiovascular surgery. And Minnesota, I think, is ranked #3. Texas Heart Institute's ranked #1. Who even knows how it gets its ranking? But we know that if you get to either of those places, you can then get a job anywhere in the world. You're considered one of the top heart surgeons just coming out of those institutions. Well, one of our doctors graduated #1 from Texas Heart Institute, became the head of cardiothoracic surgery at St. Luke's in Houston, and then later got homesick, went home to the Philippines, where he's practiced ever since. But these guys are on your medical board, and they don't get paid. They serve for free. Because they've seen amazing results. We have a very noted sports medical practice in Spain. Dr. Osorio has 19 clinics throughout Europe, and he's on our medical board. Why? He's a marathoner. He tried our product and couldn't believe the results. So we sent him a bunch of sample product for him to test with his athletes. And oh my gosh, every one of his athletes, and he's got boxers, 2 of the top 3 marathoners in the world, professional, what they call footballers, we call them soccer players, a lot of pros. In fact, that's what they specialize as, pro and world-class amateur athletes. He says, once I put them on this, he says, they don't want to get off it. And he doesn't sell it. He thinks it's an ethic violation for him to carry product in his office. So any that he has in his office, he gives out his samples. And then these guys are saying, okay, how do we get it? And he said, we just talked to him last week, and he just said, this is crazy. He's never had one. But they did a measurement. One of the plagues of being an endurance athlete is the buildup of lactic acid. Lactic acid destroys your muscle cells and tissues, and then you have to repair and rebuild. And that's why you're sore or stiff after a heavy workout or after an event. And all that's created by lactic acid. The production of lactic acid has 2 names. Doctors call it anaerobic glycolysis, and which creates the lactic acid, but sports medicine doctors call it lactic acidosis. He did a test for his distance runners, and he found out we delay the onset of lactic acidosis by 16.7% in his test. I said, is that good? And he goes, is it good? It's the biggest game changer of all time. Why is that? Because #1, they perform better because the lactic acid it gives a distance runner 2 additional kilometers before he even starts to make lactic acid. Normally, a world-class runner would start to in lactic acidosis at around the 12th kilometer. And when they're on our product, they don't start till the 14th. Well, that's 2 additional kilometers. That's about 5 or 6 times around a track if you're a miler. And it's I think it's about 1.6 miles. Well, that not only means an improved performance, but it means a radically faster recovery. Why is that important? To you and me, it's important because we don't like pain. We don't want to be sore and stiff. To an athlete, it's important because it means they can work out with more frequency and more intensity. let's see. Who's got the slides today? Sherry, is that you or Keith? Keith, do you have slides? Are you still on?
Yes, I have the slides.
Okay, let's go to the Bill Gillespie slide and we'll give it an example because this is pretty cool. And you can write down these facts and figures. As my good friend Bill Gillespie, he was strength and conditioning coach for the National Football League team, the Seattle Seahawks. And then to fulfill a promise he made to the guy who gave him his education, he became strength and conditioning coach at Liberty University, his alma mater. Well, he's been an amateur weightlifter his whole life, specializing in the bench press. And you can see at 23 years old, he benched 347. At 30, 450. At 40, now he's really getting up there, 700 pounds. That makes him one of the world's elite. At the age of 49, he bench pressed 804 pounds, which was a world record for an amateur weightlifter. Now, that amateur means he's drug tested anytime he wins. Well, he set the world record in 2008 with that 804-pound lift, and then he was downhill. At 59, that was 49. At 59 in 2018, when I called him, he was at 725 pounds. Actually, he was only lifting 712 pounds. He had the year before, he had finished the year at 725, but he had started, this is 6 months into 2008, and his lift was under 725. He got on our product and it started to go up. He could only lift heavy once a week at the age of 59. He had been lifting back in his prime 4 to 5 times a week, lifting heavy. Heavy was sets and reps of over 400 pounds. Well, he got on our product and guess what? He could lift heavy again. He very quickly went to lifting heavy 4 times a week. And instead of sets and reps at 400 pounds, sets and reps of 500, 600, 700 pounds. As a 60-year-old, his lift went up to 1,050 pounds, a new world record. At 62, 1,129 pounds. And there's a video that we have. You can go online, go to YouTube, or in your back office, it'll say Neumi weightlifter. And you'll hear him tell the first 6 months of his story, where his lift went to 915 pounds. And he stopped hurting from a lifetime of weightlifting. He didn't have near the inflammation. He started sleeping through the night, and he started lifting heavy a lot. So the advantage of a rapid recovery is that you can lift with more frequency and more intensity if you're a weightlifter. Okay, so now we're going to show you what happens when you apply this glorious glutathione technology delivered with hydrostatin nano delivery system. What happens when you apply it to a topical skincare? Now, this is Sherry who's hosting the call. Okay, this was her when she was 59. And as you can see, she looked older. And she sprayed her face 5 times a day for 7 weeks. And look at the difference. Tighter, brighter, smoother, younger looking. I sent that to my former formulator because I owned 5 cosmetic companies in my past life. And he had become the head formulator for the company that created Botox. And he saw this picture and he said, Steve, he called me and said, hey, I hate to tell you, she's had a facelift. I said, John, she has not. He said, no, there's nothing, no topical in the world, not even Botox can do that. Look at her skin. It's tighter, it's brighter. Look at how it opened up her eyes. Steve, you can't do that without a facelift. I said, well, we do. And you'll see Sherry in a minute. And now this was in 2018. So now 6 years later, she looks even better. And Sherry, come back to us for 1 second. And then we'll go back to our slides. There you are. Say something so you're center stage.
Hey, Keith. Hey.
Hey, look at that face.
Yeah.
She does not look like there we go. She does not look like she's 6 years older. And that's living proof. She became our cover girl. Okay, so at 59, not a lot of cover girls. Christy briefly does, but not many are like Christy. Of course, she has a lot of work. She always says, oh, I didn't have any. Now she finally confesses that she's had a lot of work. Okay, Let's go back to the slides. Thank you, Sherry. And as we say in the trade action. Okay, so that was Sherry, and this was me. 12 weeks of spraying my right hand, but not spraying my left hand. My son wanted me to do it with half face because I told him I used to do half face when we owned a makeup company. I said, no, because you can't wash out the difference. This stays with you. And I didn't want to say goodbye to my wife. She wouldn't date me anymore if I didn't, if I did half face. So we did right hand, yes, left hand, no. This lady, she's 84. And she sprayed. I said, how many times a day do you spray? She said, I couldn't even keep count. I had spray bottles all over the house. Anytime I passed one, I sprayed. Did the same thing with swishing. Look at her neck. Look at the neck. Also look, of course, at everything else. There's nothing in the world. Plastic surgery can't even do that. Next. Plastic surgery can't do this. They can go ahead and do surgery on the veins and bring them under, but it's not just the veins. Look at the texture and the skin tone. For an 80-plus-year-old, that's amazing. Next. Okay, she was, I think she was 28, didn't need anything, but she owns a skincare salon in Miami, Florida. And she said, Steve, nothing does this. This was after 8 days. And she says, where'd my pores go? Look how much smoother, brighter my skin is. Look how it opened up my eyes. She said, Steve, I've been in this my whole adult life. Nothing can do this. I said, I know. That's what gets me so excited. Next. Okay, now I love this lady. She's 60. And like Sherry, it looks like after a month, she had a facelift. But look what happened after 6 months. Now, this is when we met her. She had been using the product 6 months, both swishing and spraying, and she looked like a 40 to 45-year-old. She did not look like a 60-year-old. And yes, it does tighten the face, which makes it look like she lost weight, but she didn't lose weight. But look at the difference. Next. There it is side by side. So crazy. This guy's 67. What do I say? Tighter, brighter, smoother, opened up his eyes. It's crazy what we see. Next. Okay, now that one's kind of a trick photograph because the problem she has on the left side is dehydration. So we did nanosize in our product, both hyaluronic acid as well as collagen and some other peptides. And so it does really cause you to hold the hydration longer, and that's really the right hand. That's why it was such a big difference in only 10 days. Next. Young lady, but look at how even her skin tone is. Look how smooth. Where did the pores go? I mean, just huge difference. Next. Okay, this is Sherry's mom, Dean. And Dean was 80 years old. And look at the difference. 3 weeks, she sprayed 5 times a day. Next. And this lady was a smoker. I don't think she still is, but look at the damage to her neck and her mouth. And look at the lift. It's really, really awesome. Next. Okay, this was only 6 days, but you can already see a difference. The after is the right side. Look at the diminishing of the lines and wrinkles. That is a difference in lighting, by the way. Next. Okay, Nigeria. This lady is the mother of a doctor over there. That was 4 weeks of using the spray only. Look what it did to her inflammation. Look what it did to her. The melon production in her skin is under control. That's why the blackness in the upper half of her face has disappeared. Just amazing. Next. That's a 59-year-old in Australia. That was 6 weeks. A lot of sun damage in Australia, and we seem to mitigate most of it. So this guy, and we'll close with this guy because he's my favorite, 94 years old. And look real close at, now that is a difference in lighting, but look at the texture of his face. And we're talking deep texture, not just superficial. And that was 8 months of swishing and spraying. And I loved his comment. He says, better than the look, and the look's amazing. In fact, if he had brown hair, you'd say he was 60. But better than the look, he says, I feel like the guy on red on the right, not the guy on the left. So whoever just put that text in that it's somebody's dad, would you please text Keith, and Keith will put you and I in touch, because I want to talk about this guy. He's, like I say, he's one of my favorites. If I could be like that at 94, oh my gosh, that's my goal. Ryan told me, my son said when he was 10 years old, he said, Dad, I figured it out. I said, what? Okay, you can come back to me. He said, I know how old I want you to live to. I said, how old's that, Ryan? He said, 94. And I said, why 94? I mean, that was over 20 years ago. He said, well, I figured it out. Devin will be such and such. I'll be this old. Sean will be this old. Hallie will still be she'll still only be 30 something. I can't remember what he decided. Well, let's see, that's about 20 years from now. So she would be 40, 42. He said, she'll still be young, but I'll take care of her. So ever since then, my goal has been 94, but I want to be like that guy. I want to look good. I want to feel good. And so that's my focus. How can glutathione do so much? And this is the tip of the iceberg. If you could see what's in this phone from all over the world, from medical doctors, from people's upline, you would just say, Steve, that's impossible. Impossible. And that's what people say to me all the time, doctors and stuff. But it's all happening. And we make a life-changing, and in many cases, like my buddy who's the assistant coach. Oh no, he's the trainer for the Detroit Lions. It's life-saving. And you save a life, you change a family forever. You change a family, you can change a community. You change a community, you can change a society. So never underestimate. There's a great verse that says, never despise small beginnings. If you're a person who talks to one person every 6 months, don't worry about it, because that one person may be the person that has such a change. They tell 2 other people, and one of those 2 people tells 20 of their relatives that are all over. And before you know it, we actually had this happen. We had a lady in Nebraska tell a lady in Canada. That lady in Canada, within a year, had thousands of distributors that had come into her influence and her Neumi family from every continent. So one person that recruited that lady ends up having now Neumi family members because of her on every continent. That's what I love about this business. You can change lives all over the world. We are in 69 countries. We are in every continent, and we're not 3 years old yet, but we're getting closer. And oh, what a birthday party we're going to have. I don't know how many people are signed up, but it's going to be great. I can't wait, because there's some good stuff coming, as if we give you bad stuff. But it's so those of you that are our Neumi family members, thank you for joining this call. For those of you who aren't, talk to the person that invited you to this call. Realize they did not to sell you, but because they love you. The gal that now has distributors on every continent, she's from Canada, she's Chinese. And guess what? She said no at least 8 times. But the lady in Nebraska didn't give up. She kept inviting, and finally, her name is May, by the way, is the one in Canada. Finally, May says, okay, I'll try it. And I love May. I love all of our distributors. But May, you talk about someone's who's qualified. She's a CPA. She doesn't do CPA anymore. She does Neumi, because she's changing lives now all over the world. So back to you, sweet Sherry. And thank you. We'll be back same time tomorrow.
Thank you, Steve.